Good morning, everybody. My name is Rosalia Velasquez, and I'd like to welcome you to our session this morning, Philanthropy and Nonprofits for Greater Impact, the Doing Good Better Blueprint. We greatly appreciate and value your sharing of your time, and we look forward to having a discussion at the end of the presentation. Joining me today are Linda Zippo, the President and CEO of the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits, Teresa Jacks, the President and CEO of the Council for New Jersey Grantmakers, and Vicky Fernandez, Director of Thriving Communities with the Grunin Foundation. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us to do this discussion and share this great information. During our hour-long session today, we will spend about 30 minutes discussing what is Doing Good Better and the value add that Doing Good Better can have in our community and with your organizations. Let's get going. So I'm going to introduce Teresa, who will take our first few important pieces of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosalia. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here. First I want to say that it's important to say straight away that lots of organizations and lots of people are moving forward the ideas and systemic change initiatives that we in New Jersey are calling Doing Good Better. And part of what I'm doing is setting the stage, a little bit of history, even though so many of you know it. So thank you for bearing with us to do that. We think it's important. I don't want to go as far back as digging in deep on what brought us to this work, but I think we all know it's been a long time coming. Think the unequal response to Superstorm Sandy, the campaign to end the overhead myth, and the real costs equal full cost initiative in New Jersey. More recently, in the last few years, we saw a federal government that was more about dividing people than bringing people together. And frankly, that continues today. We witnessed police brutality against Black and brown people. We saw the rise of the Black Lives Movement and Me Too. Our national conversations were shifting. And while all this was going on, the global pandemic hit. On the C&JG side, as part of our response to COVID, we convened funders to share best practice and reminded funders of what happened in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy. We also asked our members to embrace a call for action that was put out by the Council on Foundations, encouraging philanthropy to provide more flexible funding, loosen restrictions on grants, and unburden nonprofit partners so they could spend their time and energy responding to the crisis. And COVID really did show us that it's possible to work differently. We saw philanthropy change and adjust their practices in response to COVID. And guess what? Nothing fell apart. I mean, things fell apart, but grant making didn't fall apart. And in fact, nonprofits were able to do their work better because of this. So C&JG and the center realized that we had a moment. We had a special opportunity that we could build on to create a framework for a full and candid conversation between our state's philanthropic and nonprofit sectors to examine traditional grant-making practices and support nonprofits on the ground and in community. And so often these groups were small nonprofits led by BIPOC leaders, making a real difference in their communities because they knew their communities. They were from their communities. So that's kind of a very quick history of how the council and the center in partnership embarked upon this journey to reimagine how New Jersey nonprofits and philanthropy work together. We definitely took the best of trust-based philanthropy principles, participatory grant-making practices, along with what we've learned for many years and what we learned during COVID, what we're still learning to reimagine how philanthropy and nonprofits can work together. Debbie, next slide, please. So working with a consultant, we put together a steering group. Next slide. Great, thank you. We put together a steering group to implement and execute this work. And we wanted it to be representative of New Jersey nonprofits and philanthropy. We also wanted to be small enough that we could do the work. Early on, this group crafted a guiding idea to help center our work, and I want to share it because I think it's important. Reimagine relationships among funders, nonprofits, and government to create shared power rooted in collaboration, mutual trust, and respect. With equity as our North Star, we seek to shift grant-making culture, structure, leadership, and practice to reflect these core principles. Accessible, equitable, and accountable relationships are primary and indisputable building blocks for a stronger society and thriving, resilient communities. Our steering committee has been meeting for about 3 years now, I think. We have been doing a lot of behind the scenes work. Excited that today we're presenting our goals and some other things that you'll see later on. Before I continue, I do want to thank the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Rita Allen Foundation for supporting us in the early years as we began this work, and also the Provident Bank Foundation for helping us to continue this work. There are others too, but I just wanted to lift those up. Next slide. So we realized, great, thank you, Debbie. We realized it was important that we didn't want to do this work in a vacuum. And we wanted to be able to test ideas and seek guidance to move us forward. So we asked some really thoughtful and smart foundation and nonprofit leaders from throughout New Jersey if they would serve as an advisory group for us. They said yes, which was terrific. This movement has really benefited in tremendous, tremendous ways from their input, and we're really grateful for their support. Next slide. Thank you, Debbie. Lest you don't know, which I know you do, this is systems change work. It embodies the principles of trust-based philanthropy and participatory grant making, seeks to right-size the power dynamics that exist between the philanthropic and nonprofit sectors, lift up and prioritize community needs, and build trust and mutually accountable relationships with a focus on longer-term support for communities. Debbie, next slide, please. Thank you. And because this is systems change work, takes time and takes patience, but we are making great strides on this multi-year project. I'm encouraged by the foundations that are embracing trust-based philanthropy and shifting traditional grant-making practices. I'm encouraged by the rise of community-centric fundraising and experimenting with new ideas. I'm encouraged that funders and nonprofit are working to reimagine and build equitable relationships. And I'm encouraged that centering nonprofits as the experts in the room is not a novel idea. We know that nonprofits are absolutely the experts in the room. I'm encouraged that the work is moving forward, but truly we are very far from the finish line. And there is a lot to do to bring everyone along. So with that kind of short setting the stage, Linda, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Teresa. And again, my profound thanks to everyone at the Council of New Jersey Grantmakers, everyone on the Doing Good Better Steering Committee, the advisory group, and the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits team, and everyone who has been involved in this work for years and years and years. Next slide, Debbie. So why now? Why not now? This should have had, this is long past time. We all know this. And nonprofits have been asking for a lot of these changes for a very, very, very long time. And there's been a huge amount of advocacy taking place by, our individual organizations and the nonprofit community and leaders in philanthropy for quite some time. But right now, I mean, it's no secret. Nonprofits are facing unprecedented challenges, existential challenges. A lot of this stemming from what's going on in the federal government, actions from the White House, executive orders, attempts to dismantle DEI, and other challenges based on ideological grounds, et cetera, et cetera. All of these changes affect everyone across the spectrum, across nonprofits and philanthropy. You can find out more about what's going on our website. I'm not going to recap all of this here. Next slide, please. What this does is just underscores the urgency of this work now. The fact that we know that philanthropy can't fill the gaps with all of the cuts that are looming from the federal government. That is just not possible. But there's a whole lot that philanthropy can do to help nonprofits, shore up nonprofits in the face of these challenges in service to our communities. And that's what the urgency is here. Next slide. Oh, wrong way. Um, in a nutshell here, as Teresa said, we've done this before. This isn't new. When the worst of COVID hit, when Superstorm Sandy hit, in the face of unanticipated disasters, philanthropy has and does do a lot of these things, relax their reporting requirements, allow nonprofits to repurpose and be nimble and be flexible in terms of how the work can get done. And good work comes as a result of this. We have seen it. So what we want, though, next slide, and the concern is that there's been some backsliding since the worst of COVID hit. More of the restrictions are coming back into place and whatnot. So what we are looking for is for philanthropy to work with nonprofits to develop practices that preserve the flexibility. We're not talking about no accountability. That's not what this is. This is a movement and a shift in practice that allows the work to go on in the best possible way. Next slide. This is a great quote, very powerful. What can we do to be of service to you rather than what you have to do to prove you are worthy of us? And this is from John Esterly of the Whitman Institute, and it really does embody what we're all hoping comes about in terms of how these relationships change and how this work can continue. I am now very happy to turn things over to Vicky Fernandez to continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Linda. Next slide, Debbie. So we've been talking a lot about trust-based philanthropy and making a lot of references to what trust-based philanthropy is. So just to give you a quick overview, and you may have heard this before, raise your hand virtually or physically if you've seen the trust-based philanthropy information before. And that's great. It's been the subject of many of our conferences and conversations. A quick reminder for everyone, and you'll get these slides, which is great because there's some live links in here if you want to dive in a little deeper to learn more about what trust-based philanthropy is. But the three main concepts around trust-based philanthropy are for foundations to listen and learn from the communities they're serving, those that are closest to the work, to empower and support grantees to achieve their goals rather than imposing rigid restrictions or metrics, and to collaborate and co-create. This is not just about philanthropy, handing the reins over to the nonprofits and saying, hands off, walk away. No, this is about a two-way process where both sectors come together to create something better than we could have done on our own. Next slide. Again, you're going to get these slides. If you click on any of the underlined words, there's going to be articles about each one of these things so that you can dive in a little deeper. but there's some recommended practices that are core to trust-based philanthropy. And these show up a lot within our project here of Doing Good Better. So I'm just going to go over those really quickly. Give multi-year unrestricted funding. Do the homework. That means for grant makers to get to know their grantees, to save nonprofits time in the early stages of the vetting process, and also doing the homework in other processes as well. You'll see that in a moment, particularly in simplifying and streamlining paperwork. Making our applications, our reporting processes, more about mutual accountability and leaving more time for mission critical work, taking again some of that burden off of nonprofits' shoulders by doing some of the homework on the philanthropy side. Being transparent and responsive, solicit and ask for feedback. And again, these are on the philanthropy side, like what are we doing to learn about what our grantees really need and what are we being receptive to hearing, right? Even when it's critical. And then offering support beyond the check. And, in addition to the grant making work that obviously all nonprofits need for us to do, this is about what else can we be doing to provide support beyond just dollars. And that might be other types of resources, capacity building, making connections, being a listening ear, etc. There's so many ways to offer support beyond the check. Next slide. I think Linda and Teresa have already alluded to some of these, but there's a lot of myths and misconceptions of what trust-based philanthropy is. And these are some of the common myths that we hear regularly. Unrestricted funding is risky. Trust-based philanthropy only benefits nonprofits and nonprofit leaders. No one likes paperwork. That's a little secret. No one likes paperwork. So it's not just benefiting nonprofit leaders when we minimize the amount of paperwork that we're putting in front of our folks. Detailed narrative and financial reports are required by law. They're not. All of this is made up. We don't need most of it. Trust-based philanthropy works in a crisis like the pandemic, but not long-term. That's not true. There are a number of funders that have been doing this kind of work for years and have created wonderful relationships and had incredible outcomes from their grantees. There's no accountability in trust-based philanthropy. That's not true. The truth of the matter is that it's about creating a mutual accountability in collaboration and partnership, as opposed to foundations kind of creating their own metrics without input from the communities that they're trying to serve. This is a nice theory, but funders won't use it. Well, I can tell you as a member of the Grunin Foundation staff, I'm very proud to say that we use a number of these practices and our grantees greatly appreciate it. It's something that we hear from folks almost immediately when we talk about our process. And I'm sure that if you, thanks Linda, I'm sure that if you implement some of these processes in your own foundations, then you'll also see that appreciation from your grantees. So next slide. We've talked a little bit now about how we got here. We talked a little bit about what we've learned from trust-based philanthropy. Now it's time to tell you what are the goals of Doing Good Better here in New Jersey. We'd love for you to implement all the different practices of trust-based philanthropy. However, we're focusing on 4 here today. Now, you'll get access to our full document that shows you the different goals. It gives you a little bit of a background information. It tells you our affirmations. Our affirmations are our guiding statements, facts that have helped inform our work and our direction. But for now, we're just going to focus on these 4 goals themselves to tell you a little bit more about what we'd like to see as part of Doing Good Better here in the state of New Jersey. Next slide. Goal 1, center equity. Small, BIPOC, grassroots, and or historically excluded led organizations have greater access to funding. That's our goal. The affirmation that's informed this is BIPOC, grassroots, and other historically excluded leaders most approximate to the populations and communities that face the most pressing social issues should be central to designing solutions and funded. So the principles behind this are overlooked or ignored. These organizations are often overlooked and ignored as real change makers. They're underinvested by major funders and are often left to struggle on their own. And when they are funded, grants are small and often highly restricted. Some funders have artificially high budget requirements, requiring collaboration with larger, quote, more sophisticated organizations. And they won't fund fiscally sponsored groups or emphasize leadership requirements that are increasingly out of date or exclude vital lived experience. That includes everything from like advanced degrees where maybe one isn't needed. And again, those budget constraints, like you need to have a $500,000 budget or $100,000 budget in order to be considered. We must provide flexible resources and professional development support while they are leading. So it's about giving dollars to the people who are most impacted by the work and making those decisions. Next slide. Our second goal is to provide flexible funding, general operating support, or general project support. And the affirmation guiding this is funds with the least restrictions are the most valuable. Nonprofits maintain and strengthen their organizations when their funds are unrestricted. Flexible and reliable funding increases impact when nonprofit leaders have control over how funds flow to meet the need of their constituents and internal operations, as demonstrated during the pandemic and when funders released previously restricted funding. General operating support funding signals trust in our partners and can open more honest dialogue about meeting the mutual goals of the funder and the nonprofit. Funders who make project or program grants should trust the organizations and provide flexible funding within a specific program. And something you'll see a little later today as we provide more information about the Doing Good Better movement are some case studies on our website that share some success stories. And I can tell you, putting on my other hat right now, I am the co-founder of the Nonprofit Professionals of Color Collective. And one of our first funding agreements was general operating support based, which allowed us to be highly responsive when our program launched in January of 2020. I wonder what happened later, just a few months later that year, that may have impacted us. Well, because we had general operating support, I can say we were able to be so much more responsive to the completely unexpected needs of our community during the 2020 year. So I'm an advocate for this work because I've seen it work within my own organization and I've seen it work within others. I'll pass it over to Rosalia to continue with our last two goals.
I think you'll like and maybe love these next two goals. And that's on both sides, philanthropy and for the service agencies. Goal number 3, provide reliable funding, multi-year grants. What we know is that longer grant terms create an environment where collaborative partnerships can flourish, and trust and transparency break down power dynamics. The result is that nonprofits have the breathing room and financial stability to focus activities where they are most needed. Many funders award grants to the same nonprofits year after year, and they often require submission of annual applications that request information they already have. It's the same information sometimes year after year, and are complex and needlessly lengthy. These processes can heighten mistrust, mutual mistrust. From a practical standpoint, multi-year awards reduce paperwork. Yay, that's something we all want, as Vicki said. It reduces paperwork for both funder and nonprofit, and open communications channels promoting shared goals, mutual trust, and increased overall impact. It's just this, I think this goal is simply logical thinking that if we can allow and we can provide an organization funding for 2 or 3 or 4 or however many years, multiple years, it allows that organization to focus their time and energy on the real reason that we're here, the mission of the organization, the work of the organization. But it also allows the philanthropic organization more time to engage with the community and engage with their funding organizations with more time, with more energy, simply because we're not doing all of that paperwork every single year over and over and over again. Next slide. Paperwork. We've brought this up. You've heard this a number of times. Goal number 4, reduce paperwork burden, right-size applications, simplify reporting. Pretty simple, isn't it? Let me go through some of these. Our affirmation, all of us can I think agree, paperwork hinders us all. Funders can lessen the burden on grantees by streamlining the application and reporting processes, especially for repeat grantee partners, decreasing the required data to only the most necessary and for decision-making. Gathering data from central repositories such as Candide, formerly GuideStar. And I think there's something new coming up soon also. Teresa can talk to, or someone can talk about that, but Teresa knows about that. And retain and use data already collected from repeat grantees. Here's the reality, and we all know this. If you're an organization and you have 5 grants from 5 different philanthropic organizations, there's a possibility that each of those 5 grants will basically be looking for the same information, but they will ask the question differently enough that it causes the nonprofit to have to do 5 different analysis of their data. And we can make this much, much simpler. There's pieces of information like the audit, the 990s, strategic plans, et cetera, that can be placed in a repository. Anyone can go in there, grab that data, and not have to request the data over and over again. Bullet number 3, require updated information such as, that's what I just talked about, annual budget, staffing, board member changes in their grant applications only when the nonprofit is the only source for this information. Collaborate with other local funders. And this is very key to this process. And really, it would be wonderful for us to work together on this and agree to comment applications, questions, and budget templates, streamline tools through technology, and offer innovative ways for organizations to apply for and report out on grants. Limit written requirements to information that is relevant to the request and which moves the needle on critical social issues. So once again, reducing the paperwork will just produce much more greater efficiency, effectiveness, and save so much time for everyone who's engaged in this process. Next slide. We are now going to talk about a tool that we have been working on for the past number of months. And Vicki and Linda, can you share with us our tool?
I'm happy to jump in and share my screen. So we talked a little bit before about the goals document that you'll see. Once you receive that, you'll note that there's a number of different activities that you can do to help advance these goals. And then once you've been working on this journey, or maybe at the very beginning, you might want to see how you're doing in this process. And to do that, we've created this self-assessment tool. Again, I want to emphasize that this is a self-assessment tool. You're not turning this into anyone. This is for your organization alone. So let's start and open it up at the very beginning. The bottom tab includes your introduction. It lets you know that, again, this is a self-reflection tool. We do recommend, though, that you, as you fill out the questions, think about your own self-reporting bias. Also, think about which questions challenge you and why. And then bring both the responses and those questions back to your team, whether it's your trustees, your staff, or your community, and dig a little deeper. So we provide directions for you with a guidepost on our Likert scale, which goes from 0 does not apply all the way up to 5 extremely applies. And again, a reminder for what to do with those results. Now, one of the things that's also mentioned here is if you're an organization or a foundation who has engaged in trust-based philanthropy in a way that's really benefited you and your community, maybe you've learned something from the process, reach out to us with the Doing Good Better effort, particularly Rosalia, and share your stories. And if you're interested in having someone come in and talk to your board more, like maybe you've already, jumped in with 2 feet and you're ready to take on trust-based philanthropy, but you don't know about your trustees, you can welcome someone from the Doing Good Better committee to your organization to have a conversation. So let's look at the actual tool. So the tool is broken down into 4 sections based on the 4 different goals. As you go through the tool, you'll see there are prompts in the second column, and there's space for you to input a score in the third column. We've provided you a rubric. So you might notice 0, 1, 3, and 5 have some examples, right, of what that might look like within an organization. 2 and 4 are not written out, but it's there. You can still use those scores. Obviously, somewhere in between is what that would look like, in between 1 and 3 or 3 and 5, as you apply this from your own organization. So let's read a few of these items, and I'm going to point out 1 or 2 that might be a little confusing, but they're there for a reason. So, funder understands the criteria and practices that contribute to or exacerbate the exclusion of BIPOC, grassroots, and historically excluded-led organizations from mainstream philanthropy. And I can look at the rubric and see how this might show up within an organization and determine where my organization is in the process. So I'm just going to put in an arbitrary score of 3 right now because I want to show you something. So I'm going to add 3 to this column. And you'll notice that it automatically tallies at the bottom of that goal section. And we'll come back to that in a second. So we have a few more questions for goal 1. Total possible score is 40. There are some questions now for goal 2. And there's a few here that are confusing, but I want to just highlight them. So for question 2.2, the following question applies to foundations with very rare legal reasons for project support. If this doesn't apply to you, repeat your score from 2.1 and go to the next question. Next question, 2.3. The following question applies to foundations with internal governance or strategic reasons for project limited support. If this doesn't apply to you, repeat your score from 2.1 and go to the next question. Why are these questions included in a process where we're trying to encourage people to go more towards general operating support? Why is there space here for groups to continue to do project-specific support? And the reason is that this is a continuum. Everyone is at a different point in the process. And we want to make sure that the groups that are on that journey that may be starting at a different point than other groups have the ability to measure their success and their growth. So again, these are very rare situations that might seem confusing to some folks, but if it doesn't apply, let it fly, right? That's the expression. So you're just going to repeat your score from the first line here, G2.1, and keep going. For the groups that this does apply to, we hope that this allows you to be a part of the process in a deeper way and learn and grow as an organization as well. So you'll continue to put in your responses for all of the questions, with the exception of section 1 of goal 1. All of the other sections have a top score of 20. So there are only 4 questions for each of those sections. Only section 1 or goal 1 has 8 questions. We don't think that this should take you very long to complete, and most likely one person from your staff will be able to answer most of these questions if they're in a leadership position and understand the grant making process within the organization. So when you're done with all of this and you fill out all of your responses, you're going to click on the tab on the bottom, and that's the score. And magically, everything you've added will be tabulated for you on this last page. We've given you a little guide to decipher your total score. From 0 to 20 points, it's time to revisit the Doing Good Better resources. That's where you'll find more ideas on how to advance these goals within your organization. From 21 to 40, you're off to a good start. 41 to 60, you're on your way. 61 to 80, you're almost at the top. And from 81 to 100, you're a Doing Good Better champion. Be proud and share your story. Now, I know one of the principles at the Grunin Foundation is that we don't like to brag about ourselves too often, right? We moved away from having our names and logos on sponsorships or plaques. We really try to focus on the work and be the humble seconds to the organizations that are doing the work themselves. However, if we as Philanthropy do not share our stories, then it can be hard for other philanthropists with a failure of imagination, let's say, to picture what this might look like within their own organizations. So when we say share your story, we mean it. We hope that you'll reach out and help us to create more cases that share the success of any of these principles. Also, as you're going through this guide, you'll notice that this process, we have the goals separated so you can see both your total score and your disaggregated score with each of the 4 goals. We know that you may be doing really great work in half of these goals, and you should celebrate that. And maybe the other goals you need to do a little bit more work, but this helps you to be able to see exactly where you're able to improve and where you're already doing great work that can be shared and strengthened. With that, I will stop my share and turn things back over to the team.
Thank you. Now we're turning it over to Linda. We're going to talk about a call to action. And can we get the slide? There we go.
I think Teresa's up first.
Yeah,
Oh.
let me start the conversation. So we have a clear call to action that we're asking for today, and Debbie's going to get to it. But the first one is exactly what Vicki talked about. Well, actually, before I get there, I want to say thank you to the advisory group. We ran these goals and the tool. The advisory group helped us craft that. They gave us ideas and information. They tested it. Thank you to the testers. So I want to just acknowledge that. That's the beauty of having the advisory group to help us with this work. But we have a clear call to action today. For funders, we're asking you to take the self-assessment reflection tool, to take it and to think about your practices and how you could shift, and to engage in discussions with your team and with your board. Very important, with your board as well. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see them there. I just want to highlight a few. Consider how your foundation can make changes in your practices that do align with the Doing Good Better ideals. And if you haven't already, please do take a look at the Trust-Based Philanthropy Project. Sign up for some of their webinars. There is so much useful information there that will help you with your work. We're also hoping down the road to organize some communities of practice so that we can share experiences, we can share stories, and you can share what works and what doesn't work, so we can continue to move forward. Something else I think that's worth sharing is throughout this process, and the advisory group reminded us many times, we've heard loud and clear that sometimes our boards are not the ones that are there yet. So we would love to present to your board. Vicki started opening the door to that and sharing that. But we'd love to present to your board about how the Doing Good Better ideals can help funders better meet their own missions and move forward the work of nonprofit partners. We want to help you shift your board's thinking if that's what you need to get the work done, to move forward, to move more towards the Doing Good Better ideals. So we're asking you to make a commitment to one goal between now and the end of the year. So think about it, at least one goal. And if you're already taking on 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of these goals in some way, what else could you be doing? We think that the reflection tool will help you think about that. I'd also ask, and it's not on this call to action, share your experiences and your learnings with your foundation colleagues. So if you're doing some of this work already, or you've tried some things, or you want to learn more, talk to your colleagues. Talk to one another about some of this work. Linda, what else would we say? Would you say?
Thank you, Teresa. Next slide, Debbie. I guess I'd like to also underscore, we've spent a lot of time in this assessment tool and self-reflection tool and talking about calls for change, starting with philanthropy, because we've had frank conversations about where the urgency lies. But what we also hope is that all of this can help to fuel great conversations and frank dialogue between nonprofit and philanthropic partners. If your foundation is engaged in this work and has taken these steps, it definitely involves reaching out and seeking input from your nonprofit partners. Is this working? Is it having the desired effect? How else can we work together to achieve change? All of that is also a critical part of this. So I want to make sure that nonprofits see themselves in this equation. Nonprofits have a lot on their plate, so we know that we're trying to make sure that those burdens don't fall on nonprofits. But this is the opportunity, again, long past time, for a rich dialogue between all of us as partners. In terms of some other first steps on the grant making side, think of these discussion prompts. How are power imbalances showing themselves in current grant making and the choices and decisions and processes that are in place? What kinds of strategic goals are in place or might you develop to help to eliminate these imbalances, and what would that look like? And again, the self-reflection tool can be really, really important there. How can your grant processes be structured to support equitable and effective grant making, and what skills and knowledge are needed? Again, there are lots of resources out there that the Doing Good Better leaders are and everybody on this call are willing and very, very happy to provide. So those are just some kind of initial reflection questions. But and a lot of work, as Teresa said, it's been going on behind the scenes. We are beyond excited to be able to bring this to you live now. Next slide, Debbie. Some of what's coming down the pike, more and more education. We a number of us, and many others, as has been pointed out, have been making presentations, sharing these principles and whatnot, and we are very, very happy to continue doing that. The websites are being updated as we speak. A lot of this information that you've heard today is on the website, so you'll be able to download the tool, you'll be able to download the goals and everything else. And this is an ongoing process. This is evolving. The work does not end. So we will be eagerly seeking and appreciating your input so that we can make this movement work and we can really achieve lasting change for the benefit of the community. I believe it is time to send things back to Rosalia. But thank you all.
Thank you all. Next slide, please, Debbie. Thank you. So I think one of the ideas that we can all agree to is just simply the fact that doing good better matters. And doing good better matters so much so in this very chaotic, stressful, ever-changing time and landscape where we don't know from one day to the next or 1 minute to the next what's going to be happening. So we are, as Linda said, terribly, terribly excited to be sharing this information with you. We look forward to your joining in on this process and being a part of this process. And we look forward to seeing the changes that will take place over the next months and years. Next slide. You can go onto our website, the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits, or the Council of New Jersey Grantmakers. Both of our sites have this information about the goals, the tools, etc. So please go to both of our sites and gather more information. And I think that wraps up our presentation. Next, I don't know. Thank you. So, thank you, everybody, and thank you for the presentations. We'd like to get some feedback and some response and reaction from you. And can we have the audio put back on for everybody? We'd like to get some feedback. What are you thinking? What thoughts do you have for your organization? If you are a nonprofit, if you are a service organization, how would our making some of these goals a reality impact or change your organization? How would it impact your work? How would it impact your engagement with those organizations that you are funding? Would love to hear from you.
And I would, so I want to lift up, so George Cruz is in the audience too, and he's part of the steering group. So thank you, George. George, do you have anything that you want to add if you can unmute? Anything that you heard that maybe you want to share?
No, I think first thing, and my apologies for being off camera today. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I got this little gravelly, I don't know, smoker's voice happening here. So yeah. But yeah, an amazing presentation to the team above all. Yeah, the only thing I would stress is, first is I think above all is continuing the importance of having nonprofit and philanthropy leaders at the table at the same time. I think that's what drove us to this point, and will continue to drive this work. The only other thing I think is important to stress, though, and kind of building on somewhat of a point that Linda made earlier today, is in addition to some of the slide back from how philanthropy responded to COVID relief, there has been a good amount of slide back when it comes to racial equity work as well. And this has occurred even before the current administration, before January 20th. And frankly, to some extent, I think we've seen that what's coming out of DC may be used as a shield to continue that sort of slide back. So that emphasis on racial equity and social justice, that still has to be in place. But other than that, I think this is great progress. It's a great tool. Let's continue the work.
Thank you, George. Thank you, and thank you for being with us on this journey.
Yes, absolutely. Can we hear someone else's voice? Any thoughts?
And it's fine if you don't want to be on camera, just.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A box.
Okay, thank you, Debbie.
One is there an ideal number of years when it comes to multi-year support?
It's a good question. I think generally a lot of people, I think initially probably look at a 2 or 3 year range because that's feels manageable, doable, et cetera. And I think you can test it out with your organization to see and work through how that might change things, how that might improve things, et cetera, over those 2 years, and then, keep going for another 2 years or 3 years. It will be up to your organization.
And I know I've heard from our members that is what they're mostly starting with when they're thinking about multi-year grants, 2 or 3 years. So
I'm just going to jump in and say too, I think once you've gotten comfortable with the multi-year grant process, there's nothing that says you can't offer 4, 5. Oh, okay. Eric and I are on the same page apparently, because I'm noticing in the chat, and Samantha too. 5-year grants, yes. And I think there's
Okay,
a
great.
wonderful thought leader in our sector, Voulay, who has talked a lot about how conservative right-wing movements, however you feel about them, are doing a lot to advance their cause because of long-term funding and general operating funding that we don't seem to see as much in the more liberal or left side, more progressive funding streams. So I think you should really check out his work, and he advocates for as much as like 10 years. So just a thought.
Another
Excellent.
question is there any limit to who from our foundation can use the self-assessment tool?
no.
I'm happy to jump in and say, as long as the person understands your grant making process and understands the work that your foundation is doing, then anybody can fill out the self-assessment. And there's no harm in more than one person filling it out and then comparing results. Like, because it is a self-assessment tool, and we recognize that there is self-reporting bias potentially, it could be really helpful to compare answers.
We really just want funders to take a look and start using the reflection tool, to help you on your journey. And Sophia's had her hand up.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. First of all, thank you so much for hosting this. Really appreciate it, and excited to get the slides later because I was like, "Ooh, I can pull this into a presentation I'm making to our board trustees." But just really appreciate it. And two things I just want to call out or just continue to uplift. One, I really appreciated the call out that you made around the fact that the need gaps right now cannot actually be filled by philanthropy, and not in a like, oh, because we're going to give up kind of way, but in a like, that's the reality. All right, great. Like, what can we do? Where can we fill in? Because sometimes it can be daunting, right? When we talk to some of our partners and hear that they're losing millions, sometimes based on their budget, that is even more than our operating budget. So just wanted to appreciate that reality. And then the other piece I wanted to uplift was just that piece around listening and learning. And one thing that we did, that we've been doing at the Campbell's Foundation, is that in the last month or so, we've actually been doing listening sessions with some of our key long-term anchor partners. So we know, for example, that we don't necessarily have the funds to, like I said, open up to new grant applications and create new grant programs. But what we are doing is just really sitting with our partners and saying, how are you affected? What are you seeing? What are the gaps? And we're actually, just in full disclosure, looking at that in terms of some additional support that we can provide unrestricted in the coming year. But just really wanted it to be informed by their voices as well. And just even hearing for some of our partners, oh, we had federal funds and it's cut here. Like, hey, there's this gap. And then for others, hey, we actually didn't get this, but here's the ripple effect, right? So it's some foundations pulling funding, or now there's more competition for grants. So it's just been eye-opening. And so I just wanted to uplift the listing part, because it's bad, but then you talk to our nonprofit partners, and it can be overwhelming. But for any nonprofits on this call too, just the sense of hope and resilience is amazing. And there's so many folks, both philanthropy and nonprofit, who just say, hey, we've kind of been here before. Like, we're gonna get through this together again. So just wanted to uplift those pieces.
Excellent. Thank you. Great message. That's a great message. Debbie, are there any additional questions?
Not in the chat, not in the Q&A. I would just welcome anyone else who wants to either, as Sophia did, just put your hand up or even unmute. We have a little bit of time here. Oh, there's one more question just popped up. See, is there a place you can suggest nonprofits seek grantors?
Linda, Teresa, anyone?
Craig, yes, let's mention it. Okay.
Yeah, let's mention it.
Let's
So,
mention it. Go ahead, Craig.
Foundation Center, which is now Candid, as mentioned before, Rosalia mentioned that, is one place to start. The the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits and Council of New Jersey Grantmakers are partnering to bring a new database platform to every nonprofit and every foundation and philanthropy organization in New Jersey called Impala.digital, which is a combined platform for nonprofits to find funders and for funders to find nonprofits. More information will be coming about that soon. We are anticipating an October launch. So please stay tuned, join both of our mailing lists if at all possible, and we'll make sure that you get that information.
Thank you, Craig. Right now, we're building the funding to bring that to New Jersey for 3 years. Yeah, we're looking for a launch in October. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that we still have to do that, but exciting that may be another, that will be another resource for nonprofits and funders, for funders to do the homework so nonprofits don't have to do that, and for nonprofits to make new relationships, to see what else is out there. So more to come.
Excellent. Anyone else? One of the things, if I may, I wanted to go back to one of the goals, the whole question of reducing the paperwork burden. And one aspect of that I did not mention was it would be great if we could get like 5 philanthropic organizations to sit down together and agree to one application form, where there's just one document that if an agency fills out that document and then someone else comes and asks for information, there's 5 organizations that would say, just send us that information, or we know where that information is. So I would love to work with some of you to make that happen. So call me if you're interested in that. That I think would be a very doable reality by the end of the year.
And
call me.
And we have that.
Yes.
We have that in New Jersey. I think that some funders moved away from that when digital platforms popped up, but there still is that. I would add to that, and we have 1 minute left, and then I'll toss it back to Rosalia to close us out. If you could do if funders could think about doing one small thing, which is a big thing, allow nonprofits to repurpose their annual reports as their final reports for general operating support grants. That would be huge. That's a very concrete thing that can be done. So Rosalie, I see we're at 10:59. I'm going to toss it back over to you.
Thank you, everyone. We've provided you a lot of information today, a lot of important information. We will send out the slides. We will, you have access to the assessment tool on the website. Any information you would need, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me, and I will happily follow up and we'll start working together. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. This has been relevant time to do this presentation and share this information with you. Thank you to everyone who has helped us to get here. We greatly appreciate it. And it is 11 o'clock, so I've got to let you go as I had promised. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you,
Take care.
Rosalia, for bringing us along.
Absolutely. You're here. Thank you, everyone.